Good evening, everyone. With the posted time having arrived and a quorum of members present, I'll call the Finance Committee for Tuesday, February 28th, 2023 to order. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting on 2/14 of 23, copies of which are in the packets. Does anyone have any revisions or adjustments needed to the minutes? If not, I'll take a motion to approve them as written. Motion by Denny. Is there a second? Second by Watson. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. Minutes are approved. Item number 2 is to a discussion and possible action regarding ARPA funding requests and related budget modification. And you'll see the 2 items that we had to rank for this meeting were presentations that we'd had previously. One for lead service line abatement to recapitalize the fund for that project. And then the council chambers modernization, which is the voting and AV equipment in this room. And you've got the scoring results. Marianne just passed out. It looks like the lead service line average ranking on that project was 75, and the average ranking on the council chamber modernization was 53. And so the request is to fund both of those with ARPA dollars. And I believe where we were sitting with the ARPA dollars, we have is it just under 3 million?
Yes.
Left. So we have to make a decision as to whether or not you want to fund those 2 projects from ARPA. What are your thoughts, committee members? Sarah?
I guess, can you refresh my memory? I don't have the sheet in front of me about the costs.
Sure, it was 500,000 for the lead abatement and 140 for the council chambers.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I guess, like, I see the value with the lead service abatement. I mean, I see value with both projects, especially with how multimedia specialist people have to be to run this place. But I would want to put that on the back burner and just hold for a bit and then maybe go forward through the lead service one.
Well, and that modernization project has been on CIP before, and it's been scored. It didn't get funded last year, but that doesn't mean, usually after stuff appears on that list for a period of time, with the exception of a couple projects, they do tend to work their way to the top as the need grows. So, CIP again happens in July, and so that's something that you could put, on your, later to-do list and, maybe look for it either in CIP or as a wrap-up project if you wanted to. Sarah?
And that project probably would take a long time to complete, especially since we have to have the funds done by, end of 2024?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, committed.
Committed, but not spent.
Right.
So committed by then. So I mean, it wouldn't be very hard to do that project at a later date if we have money.
The modernization? Well, yeah, certainly faster than the lead line stuff. So, other thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, I think the big concern with the modernization is to get the orders in place because parts availability is still tight. I believe that was the key item on that. But I'm okay with waiting until either CIP or if we have any leftover money from some excess revenue or something from last year,
Surplus or project
or
savings?
something like that. Because I think it's an important project and a noble project. I'm just on the edge on if it totally fits the mission for ARPA.
Yeah, with the water quality issue with lead lines certainly does. I mean, that was clear for us. So, Carol?
Thank you. My feeling was the same on these. I think they're both important. I think the equipment modernization is really important, but I too was wondering if, we could wait to see if there was a surplus, if there was any other kind of funds. And I know that I ended up a little lower on the lead service abatement. I do think it's important. I think it's really important, but I guess I was just wondering if there are any other funds that at all could be used, and if not, I know that, with the changes coming to, that's important.
Right.
So.
Well, and I think we had some discussion about the bipartisan infrastructure bill and federal funding as well as DNR funding for lead line replacement. Obviously, there may be future funds that are available to us, but I think in the presentation, it was to basically give this a jump start beyond the funds that they've been able to source previously. And then I think if other fund sources come available, they would certainly be looking to use those. Public Works Director is nodding. So that said, if you wanted to, if someone wanted to make a motion to fund Because what I'm hearing is that we want to fund lead service abatement and then hold on the council chamber modernization. If someone would like to make a motion to that effect,
Can I
I'll
ask one
accept
more
it. Sure,
question?
for sure.
I know that I had emailed a public works director, and so my understanding with this for the lead service line abatement is that it's to incentivize, right? So it's not actually it's to incentivize it for,
The private side.
for the
Yeah.
residents,
Right.
right? To help
So-
them out with it.
Right, so the infrastructure that we're doing on on those streets, our side or the city side of the services are included in that work, but the private side is not. And so without funding to, try to work towards our lead service line replacement plan, that's what there is no money in '22, so there's a gap here, or I'm sorry, '23. There's a gap here this year with how the DNR is changing how they're allocating funds. So we did make a large request for moving into '24 for lead service line replacement. I believe it was about $3.5 million to start, so.
Oh, okay, so that would take the place of this next year then? So this is just for this year? Because I
Yes.
guess that was my question, and I'm sorry that I
That's
know I've
okay.
asked you about this a few
all right.
times, but because I was kind of wondering, well, what about other residents then in the future? So
Right.
that's what the DNR would,
Yes, yep,
Okay, so then this
Okay.
would actually
Thank
be
you.
Yeah.
given essentially as a grant to the homeowner to replace their side like we were doing with the DNR funds prior.
that's correct, yeah.
Right. And we found that absent some help or financial help with that, most homeowners are either reluctant or unable to replace their side
correct.
on a tight schedule, which is what the road project really brings. So,
Yeah.
okay. So with that, do we have a motion then to proceed with funding on the lead service abatement and then hold on the chamber item? Motion by Martin, second by Lukens. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries. Item number 3 is discussion and possible action regarding a change to the allocation of ARPA funds from Catholic Charities to Open Door and related budget modification. And you'll recall a number of meetings ago, we funded, and then subsequently the council funded, 365-day-a-year night shelter and a day center with ARPA funds to assist our unhoused population. So police department and our homeless advocates were working with Catholic Charities to find a way to provide those services. The overnight shelter is much easier because it's already in existence. The day center is essentially new. So to stand that up and move it forward required some work. And so they got to working through their plan. And I believe, and we can maybe bring Chief Bliven up to talk about this a little bit because he's kind of been spearheading some of these discussions. But in trying to roll this out a little faster to get services out to the unhoused population, it became apparent that Open Door is actually already conducting some of this day center work, or at least they have been during the extreme weather events that we've been having, and they've got a core of volunteers that they can mobilize to do it a little bit quicker. So then the discussion began, I believe, about a subrecipient agreement for Catholic Charities to perhaps be able to contract some of that obligation out to Open Door. Is that kind of where you left off, Chief?
Sounds like it, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for the background.
Okay.
There's a lot of documentation in the finance packet that relates to this request. So like Ms. Rasmussen said, a number of months ago, the city council gave direction that they'd like a warming center to operate year-round, 365 days a year for the nighttime shelter. But then in addition to that, to have a day center that's available for people to be at during the daytime with programming. So Catholic Charities had stepped forward and said that they would be able and interested to do both of those projects, and there was ARPA dollars allocated by the city council for that in the amount of $778,000. In discussions subsequent to that decision by city council, Catholic Charities realized the heavy lift that would be for their organization to stand up a day center. And so they began discussions with Open Door to see if they would be able to run the day center operations. And so I would say also that Kevin Birch from Catholic Charities is on the line. He can talk further about this. And I know that Andrew and Bob Grady are here in the room as well from Open Door, and they could also speak into this if you have questions for them. So in discussions with the two groups, Catholic Charities said that they have the ability to hire somebody part-time, 10 to 20 hours a week, in order to oversee the administrative piece of that with Open Door, because I think it's fair to say that Open Door, this would be a large change in their organizational structure, more money than they've had before, and more things that they'd have to figure out how to navigate. And so Catholic Charities has stepped forward and said they can handle that administrative oversight, help them with the finances and help them with the programming to get them up to speed and up and running. And so that's where the $50,000, $25,000 for 23 and $25,000 for 2024 come in the request for Catholic Charities. And then the Open Door piece of that would be for the programming and staffing for the day center. Open Door's been in existence for over a decade now. Their initial mission was to be ready and open for people as they were being released from incarceration. So they had, food and support and clothing and that kind of thing when they're being released from jail. And in the recent last few years, they've really been a good partner for our community in terms of opening their doors up on really cold weather days, and kind of having a quasi day center and places for people to be and stay warm. So they have some of that infrastructure in place to be able to do that, and so that's where this request is coming in. The total amount of their request is $239,000 and change for 2023 and 2024.
Okay, and as you may know, the mayor and I both continue to serve on the task force that the United Way is spearheading that is addressing the issue of homelessness community-wide. We've had a number of discussions at that task force about need for street-level services, and somewhere for people to be during the day is key to that mission. I think that will, or should at least, relieve some of the pressure that we see on both the library and other public structures if there is a safe place where people can be during those daytime hours when the night shelters have closed. So I do think, though, that given the fact that this is a bit of a step for Open Door, to have that knowledge base and that administrative resource coupled together from Catholic Charities who do this all over the state, I think it's super helpful to have those two resources come together and then deliver that quality service and then share that knowledge with a new provider or a newer provider. So it certainly makes some sense, but obviously they need a little extra funding to do that. We did not set this up for ranking and scoring because we've ranked and scored the night shelter and the day center already. And so this is really just a funding change. Committee members, any questions for the chief at all? Go ahead, Carol.
I don't actually, I guess, have a question for you, but I would just say that I agree with what you've said. Just from the contact I've had and visiting Open Door and spending some time there and talking with the staff there, that I think it provides a really valuable service to our community. And yes, the only difference in this financially would be the, $51,000, right, for administrative duties for 2 years. So I'm very much in support of this. So I very much in support of it. I'll leave it
Okay.
at that. Thank you.
Well, and I think that it's helpful, given the fact that we're dealing with federal dollars and reporting requirements, it helps that we have that knowledge base to be shared. Sarah?
So I guess my question is then, does an additional just $51,000 need to be reallocated from ARPA? And we
Yes.
have to go about, do we need to score it again? Or
No,
because
because we've scored it already and it's for the same purpose.
So then we would just say, hey, I would like the additional funds to be distributed for this
Yes,
process.
and so then we would send forward to the next council meeting a request for them to raise that funding by that 51.
I would love to make that motion.
Okay, motion from Watson. Is there a second? Second by Lukens. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries.
Thank you.
So thank you, everyone, for your hard work on that. I know it's been a lot of logistics, but it's coming together. So item number 4 is discussion and possible action regarding a budget modification for the fuel tank upgrade for Metro Ride. And you'll recall quite a few meetings ago, we had approved this project for the former transit director. They started to do some replacement and then found out there was proprietary pipes and fittings and there were pandemic parts delays and all sorts of issues. And so now we come to reconcile the 2022 bills and come to find out that this project is actually more expensive than what was originally forecast. So I guess you've got copies of some of that correspondence in the meeting packets. I guess we'll turn it over to the finance director maybe to walk us through her recommendation, so.
So, yeah, I don't really know much about this project. Greg sent me an email on the Sunday before his retirement on Monday with heading project update and see attached. So that is the extent of information I got. Frankly, I never even opened the email because I thought it was just going to be information that I might need at some point. So that's why there is a delay between the January 15th date on his memo and when we are finally bringing this to finance. Obviously, we've experienced another shortfall. We have 2 invoices that Greg did forward dated October of 2022 that remain unpaid. My understanding is the project is complete except for a couple of little keypad changes or something. I don't know, Andrew can tell us those details.
Okay, yeah, if we can get the current status of the project, and I did see a memo in some of the packet materials that it seemed like the transit director was as surprised as anyone that the invoices were to be added together and that the one was not replacing the other. So, whether that's the result of miscommunication or what, we can't be sure. He's not here, but go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, from what I can recall through correspondence, talking to Greg, that there was a miscommunication on the 2 different invoices. That part of the project is complete for the invoices from October. There is a third part of the project that is not complete yet. That money was already allocated and coming in at budget yet. There's some electronic components that they're waiting for yet on that.
Okay, but in this particular case, the work has been performed. And
Yes.
so, and it's been performed satisfactorily, I
Yes.
assume? Okay, all right.
Yep, and so the funding would come from transit's reserves.
Okay. And so that's, fund source has been identified as well. We wouldn't have to get that from the general fund. There is sufficient funding in the Metro Ride coffers for that bill. Does anyone have questions on the item? Doug, go ahead.
Sure. I guess I'm concerned about how this happened. We back in June, we shortcutted the process by just sole sourcing it to Northwest, and we did not put in a bid, or we did not do an RFQ for U.S. Petroleum and Waltz. We applied a inflation factor of 8.5% to give us a comparison so that we would have a reasonable parts comparison for Northwest Petroleum. So it seems to me we had one that was a problem that now sets us up for looking back and saying, well, did we have a good RFP? Did it spell out exactly what each of these people were supposed to be doing? I'm not satisfied, I guess, until I see some of the forensics here and what took place. I mean, we've communicated 3 times now on this. Is it a miscommunication or is it a vendor not coming through for us? He was very clear what the amounts were in his budget modification, the $31,000, which included $23,000 for replacement of pipes, the $8,500 for replacement of the fuel dispenser. So I'd also like to know, what do we do when we put in a change order like that? Do we cancel our old PO, issue a new one, or do we put in a change order? Was there a chance of confusion? To me, I don't have enough information to approve this. I think I sent an email. I had a couple other questions in there, but it seems like a poor way to run a project.
Well, and it looks like they've gone back and asked some questions of the vendor that yielded a reduction in the bill of $4,150 approximately, right? So there's been some adjustment made upon review of the invoice, but there still is a deficit there, so.
Well, then there's the issue of this apparently we got the original, or the invoices in October, And we're just finding out about it now after the director left on his last day. So it just doesn't smell right. And I don't want to impugn one person or the contractor, but I've been on the losing end of contracts before, and you always kind of wonder, what did the other guy miss? What is he doing differently? What is he doing wrong? It appears that he's had his cake and eat it too. He was the low bidder on the original project by a factor of what was 20,000 to 40,000 was the top bidder, and then he came in as the high bidder after the rebid, and then he came in so it went from 21,000 to almost 75,000. So I'd like to see more as why something like this could happen.
Well, and a person does have to wonder, I mean, in some cases with the bidding, even if it's a request for quotes or whether it's a bidding, sometimes you wonder if the person that becomes the low bidder is that far off because they've perhaps missed something that the others caught. And then, of course, we had the issue with the proprietary pipes and fittings, which was much to everyone's surprise. But separate from that, sometimes you wonder if you've got a lowball bid to get the work, and then all of a sudden, through these nickel and dime type things, it catches up and then exceeds what the lower bid may have been. So,
Well, we can make that assumption, but I guess, Mike, what I would have questioned back then is if they made the analysis that this was a good way to go to come in and not replace that underground piping, the contractor has some obligation to know what he was getting into because he didn't know until he dug it up. So, there's just too many missing parts here. And we should learn from this. And whether it was a mistake, whether it was miscommunication, or whether it was bid trickery, which I'm
You never know.
reluctant to say.
You don't know.
But I can't make that decision until I see
Right.
what was the RFP look like, what were the original bids, did we get a PO acknowledgement? There's so many stopgaps here that we could have avoided this had we done proper procurement procedures, in my opinion.
And the other thing is we've been in a situation for a couple of years now where bids, if anything, have been coming in way high because places have way more work and parts have been at a premium for a number of industries in general. So, I mean, even with road construction and things, we've seen bids have been shockingly high in some projects. And we've waited actually on some work to rebid the work to see if it gets any better as the economy starts to thin out. So I think we have a couple of options. I mean, now the work is done and the bill is here. So we have the option to either fund the bill from the Metro Ride Reserve, or we have the option, I think, to request some further investigation on the project and the estimate. But, to what extent are we going to be able to get that knowledge, I guess is, do we have some options to go back with the contractor and then investigate who sold what to whom and figure out like a little bit of a timeline on this since the director is now gone?
Well, I assume we're still in contact and we know who the contractor is. So I would suggest we postpone judgment on this until the next meeting.
Well, if we could get 2 weeks, I mean, with the length of time that's been in play, 2 weeks is probably not a deal breaker. So, could we get those answers if we hold action on this for now, for the March 14th meeting? Could we get a little information from the contractor with the bill and see if we can determine where the discrepancy lies? I mean, I think, the memo that we have or the write-up that was in the packet where the transit director indicated, or former transit director indicated that he was, as surprised as anyone that this was a sum total and not a replacement total, does signal that there's been some miscommunication or a clear misunderstanding. Obviously, we can't undo that. If it was a misunderstanding and somebody made a mistake along the way, that happens. But it doesn't mean that the work is undone and the bill is still here. So what do you guys want to do? Do you want to wait and see if we can get some more information or pay it? Sarah?
I mean, I think if at least one of our committee members has some outstanding questions, I think we should have them answered. And
Okay.
like you said, 2 weeks isn't really the end of
Okay.
with how long it's been going on. So I'd be okay waiting until next week.
All right, it seems like that seems amenable to everyone. Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm just going to echo what Doug said, that I really am curious on the discrepancy, just comparing the first invoice and the second invoice of the amount of work that was done, that I kind of want to see what the original bid looked like from, to see where everything kind of fell apart. just so, you know, in the future, we can make better decisions
Well,
on
that's
things
true.
like
And I mean,
that.
was it in the parts or was it a miscalculation on labor hours or what was it? I mean, as far as the,
Yeah.
why they're so different. So that research, I think, would be valuable to us.
Yeah, and that would just kind of give me peace of mind here that it's, because there's a lot of stuff in the second invoice, there was a lot of stuff done that I would assume would have been necessary with the original project, but, you know, not knowing, but although not knowing about, you know, gas stations.
Well, and there is
I
some-
couldn't make an informed decision unless you look at.
There
what
is
they
some
did.
value to be had in kind of digging into it a little bit further to find out, because you certainly don't want the reputation of the fact that bills can just be revised and we just automatically pay them. So
Yeah.
let's get some more answers then, and maybe we'll have a different comfort level with it if we give the team a couple weeks to dig up some additional info, if that would work.
That-
Well, I guess I'm not clear on what additional information you really want from us. So we can provide you with copies of the original RFP and the quotes that were received. My recollection is, you know, from procedural nature, Greg followed the process. The proposals were opened at Board of Public Works. We had written proposals. And then once he started working with the contractor, that's when numbers changed. He came back before the committees and asked for a budget modification. I know at the time, when they asked for the budget modification, it was one of those situations where there was not a clear, good answer, because the work needed to be done. Greg, I think, not putting words in his mouth, but felt that we should proceed with the original contractor. We didn't really know what to do. But based on that recommendation, we did proceed. He did get a budget modification. It went before the council. And then after that time, really until January 16th or 15th, when he crafted this, we were unaware that there were troubles.
Okay.
So I'm really not sure what addition, we can ask the contractor to come here and he can speak to you.
Well,
I-
I'd like
I-
to see the RFP,
Okay.
the quotes from the three contractors. Then there was a requote after apparently they discovered they screwed up their first quote.
Well, I think that's when they had the proprietary piping and fittings, right? So,
You know, and then we apparently issued, or either canceled the old PO or issued a new PO or offered an amended PO. Be nice to see how that was communicated, and then if there was any acknowledgement.
Okay.
okay. And was there also some time urgency on this project? I think they had to get an extension for the completion
Yes,
date.
they did.
So there was some type of environmental or DNR order that this be remediated. That's how we ended up doing the project in the first place, or something? Was that, there was some environmental concern with the way it was, that it had to be upgraded? Sarah?
So I guess, because you said there was like a period of time where there wasn't any clue of what was, like, we didn't know what was going to be happening and these costs are going to go up from the
I'm
one
just
time to
saying
the
that
15.
since the budget modification last summer.
Yeah.
That I did not have communications with Greg that there were problems on the project. It wasn't until January 15th.
Okay, so I guess my question would be what sort of happened in between then? So.
I don't
yeah.
know how we'll find that out.
Well,
Okay,
and that's the
so-
thing. If he was still here, he'd be here and we'd probably know, but, you know, absent that, that's, go ahead, Doug.
Well, I guess, yeah, and maybe the contractor can fill us in, but it's very clear here, time was of the essence, and it was stated here by the director that the contractor had all the parts ready to go and had the labor available to get going on the project right away. So they got going on it right away. I don't know where they are the ones that are going to be able to tell us why they had to spend more money. Cost of materials could not have gone up because they had them already in hand.
Right.
So, you know, I don't think it should be very simple for them to tell us why, or where they miscommunicated or where they misunderstood.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if there was a mistake in the understanding of the cost or the scope of the work, that's probably useful information. So, at the end of the day, I think we're probably still going to, we likely owe it. I mean, the work is done, it's been done satisfactorily, so, but I think if we need some more background to get comfortable with, why that took place, it's certainly worth taking some time to get that knowledge. So if everyone's agreeable to that, we'll hold action on this item until March 14th. That'll give the staff some time and the department some time to have some internal discussions or perhaps contact the vendor. So, okay, thank you for that. We will hold that item, number 4. Item number 5 is discussion and possible action on joint powers agreement with Marathon County regarding E911 and G911 system. This looks like a standard renewal of a contract that's been in existence since the start of 911. So we've got that in your packets. It looks like it's been reviewed from legal. Any questions for anyone on that particular contract? I'll make a motion. Go ahead. Motion from Martins to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Denny. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries. Item number 6 is discussion and possible action on sole source request to upfit for 2023 police squad vehicles. That sole source is from Belco Vehicle Solutions, who've been doing their squad car upfitting. A couple years ago, they did go to, I believe, either RFQ or RFP on that process, but based on the memo in the packets, it sounds like they had some difficulty getting vehicles in general in 2022, and there's some delays there. So they would like to sole source the upfit of the 23s in place of the 22s that did not come in. Is that correct? We've got Solomon with us from Motor Pool. He can maybe clarify.
Hi.
Hi.
So the cars that were ordered in October of '21, we got permission to do an advance order for the cars of '22. So they were ordered in October of '21, and that money was allocated for those. We got notice at the beginning of this year that those cars were canceled.
Okay.
So now we met with the police department and found other alternatives. We purchased those cars through state contract,
Okay.
and now we need to upfit them. So this upfit through Belco was previously approved, and now we just need to pretty much reapply to these cars.
To the new cars, sure. And it's been, I think, pretty well established that law enforcement agencies countrywide have had trouble getting vehicles in general.
Yeah.
So, but this does install all the equipment in them, including the computers and the radios and all of those things to make them police cars. So if anyone has any questions on that, if not, I'll take a motion to approve. Motion by Lukens, is there a second? Second by Denny. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, motion approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Solomon. Let's see, item number 7 is discussion and possible action on sole source request to purchase 12 portable radios with accessories from Northway Communications. And that request comes from the fire department, because, we've hired 12 people, and so with 12 new people, you have 12 sets of turnout gear, and they all need to be able to communicate. So also matching radios to what everyone else is using is what's on the memo in the packet here, from the same vendor that offers local service on them. If they, and I think part of the discussion we had when we started to replace radios with police and fire, both through CIP, was that one thing they were looking for was a local point of service. Because with their prior contract, they were in a situation where there was no shop here, and they were having to mail stuff in to get it worked on, and no local representative that they could work with to get that stuff fixed. So, so that's what we have here. Does anyone have any questions on this particular purchase? If not, is there a motion to approve that request? Motion by Martins, is there a second? Second by Watson. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries. Item number 8 is discussion and possible action on sole source request for Transit Cummins engines. So we've got some documentation in the packet on those as well. Does anyone have any questions on that particular item? If not, is there a motion to approve? Motion by Denny, is there a second? Second by Lukens. Questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries. Item number 9 is posted, I believe, for open and closed session. So item number 9 is discussion and possible action regarding approving nominal payment parcel reports for the Stewart Avenue, South 72nd Avenue to South 48th Avenue Street project for the following properties. And there's an attachment of which addresses those apply to. Typically, since there's payouts to homeowners, we discuss those in closed session. Is there any open session material to be discussed before we would go to closed session, Eric? There's not, okay? Would someone read the closed session motion then? Go ahead, Sarah.
I move to go to closed session pursuant to section 19.85 sub 1 sub E of the Wisconsin statutes for deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business, whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session regarding approving nominal payment parcel reports for the Stewart Avenue, South 72nd Avenue to South 48th Avenue Street project for the following properties.
Okay, so we have a motion from Watson. Is there a second? Second by Lukens. We'll do a roll call vote for closed session. Denny?
Aye.
Martins?
Aye.
Lukens? Watson?
Aye.
I'll vote aye as well. We'll adjourn to the Maple Room for closed session, and if there's open session action to be taken thereafter, we'll reconvene in this chamber. Thank you.